I'm going to beat Bolian. We're going to beat these guys.
The last official Cannonball run was in 1979, but the story of crazy people racing across America was far from over. Perhaps the most entertaining modern interpretation of the Cannonball spirit was called the 2904. It was organized for the first time by John Ficarra in 2007, and the premise was racing across the country from New York to California for less than $1 a mile. $2,904 to buy a car, repair it, do anything not safety related, pay for food, tolls, gas, tickets, everything it takes for you and a team to safely and as quickly as possible reach that final destination. And for 2017, to celebrate the 10th anniversary, he decided to organize one last run.
I put the word out that maybe we might do it one more time, and this time we were going to do the original 2904 route. And we were going to go from the Red Ball to San Francisco. And I'd won it a few times, and I'm like, I want to win the last one. I want the trophy to come home with me. And like that's how I want to finish it. 10 years, and I finally get the trophy back, and we wrap it up, and everything's fine. I'm like, what's the car to do it in? And I had already done all the great theatrical things. We had the A-Team van. I did it in a fake Army staff car, the General. We did it in an ambulance, dressed as, the guys from the movie. And we had done all kinds. I got the Jaguar, which they did in 79, which was the Top Gear car. I'm like, what car? And I was thinking about what car I always wanted to do it with. And we first thought about it. There were a few cars that came to mind. And I remember the one car that always came back was the Saab 9000 Aero. So it was capable of doing 150 miles an hour. It could do that at length. It could do that comfortably and safely at a good suspension, obviously a proven motor and drivetrain, and you can get them cheap. I found one in Washington. This hippie had it rotting outside her house. There was a picture of it on Craigslist, and behind it was a deuce and a half and some other broken down military vehicles. I was like, well, perfect. I thought I had it. I got the car. Finally got the car. I'm going to beat Bolian. We're going to beat these guys. It still was making the most awful sound. And the sound, I'm like, I changed the oil, put in heavier oil. The sound went away. I'm like, it's driving great. Until it wasn't. And the noise turned out to be rod knock. And on a very dangerous road in the Santa Cruz Mountains, it broke down and threw the rod on me. And I'm like, after all this preparation, and it was only weeks till the event at that point. I'm like, oh man, what do I do? So I put out a call and I talked to Ed. And I'm like, what are you doing, Ed? Ed's like, he's like, I'm not running to win it. He goes, I already won it. I already did the crazy thing. He goes, I have a perfect car. And he goes, you should run with me. I'm thinking, that'd be awesome. That's the way to finish off the 2904. I get to run with Ed Bolian? Hell yes. He had found a Cadillac limo, a nice stretched out limo from the 90s. And so it had good motor in it. And I think he bought it from a guy in a Walmart parking lot. And, a little rust, a little something, but it was okay. He got it back. He was getting it ready. So I'm like, great. And we put together the rest of the team, and it turned out to be just fabulous. It was me and Ed, and we got John Harrison, who'd been our Grand Marshal since the third run. And he ran the original 79 Cannonball. So the run with an original Cannonballer, he ran that in a Lotus, and he was actually one of the extras in the Cannonball movie. On top of the fact, he never actually finished the 1979 Cannonball because they cracked up their car outside St. Louis.
John had called and said, hey, would you like to come with us? This is the last time we're running it. I'm going okay, if I can do it. I'd love to try. First heard about the 2904, I think it was the second time it was run. And I saw it posted on the internet. I'm going wow, somebody's finally doing something. It had been so long since the last Cannonball. And I was happy to see it.
It's a limo. Usually I ran with a team of 3, but it's a limo, right? So we're fourth, and I call up Sifu Alex Richter. He's a Kung Fu master. And Alex runs City Wing Chun in New York City. And Alex ran with me on the original 2904. And I'm like, I'll get to do the last one with one of the guys from the first one. I get to run with Ed, and I get to run with a 79 Cannonball runner. That's how you finish the 2904.
My wife, of all things, is the genesis to me participating in a 2904 run. So last year, early last year, she tells me, honey, I don't know what's going on. Maybe you're having a midlife crisis, but I feel like you need to race across the country or something. Just get out there and go. And this is one of those things where she says it, and I'm like, there's no way she's serious. I have no idea what you're talking about. That's not me. Why would I want to do that kind of thing? I want to get as close to 96-ish as I can, because that was around the cutoff time frame. And what made sense to me was something American Iron that's got legs and just can go. So I started thinking through, was it a Mustang potentially? Well, those are a bit more expensive. How do you cruise across the country in luxury? Lincoln, obviously. If it works for Matthew McConaughey, it'll work for me. So I find a 93 Lincoln. We assume, man, this is great. This thing's running, it looks great. It's blue on blue. The blue leather is epic, just proper 93 color of everything. So we get this car and we assume I won't have too many issues to deal with. It's a 93 model, but okay, the guy was smart enough to get rid of the air ride, put in traditional suspension, if you will. So a little bouncy, floaty, but again, we'll handle whatever bumps there are on the interstate.
We had a great field of cars and a diverse field of cars, which is really what I wanted from the beginning. You know, there's a Volvo station wagon that was dressed up as a hearse. And they actually had the ashes of a friend in the back. So they were actually carrying a dead body. Arnie was there with his Crown Vic, and pretty much odds were on he was just going to crush it, because he had been kind of robbed in 2015. And he was definitely the person who was there with the eye of the tiger, and he was going to make it happen.
So in 2015, I had come in third place in the 2904 event, and in 2016 I had won the C2C Express and set the antique car Cannonball record. But what I really wanted was the cross-country competition record. What was cool about this year's running was it was going to be the largest field of cars to ever run across the country since the US Express in the early 80s. This year, my team consisted of Miles, who had been on the 2015 2904 run, and my buddy Syed. Now, Syed I had made a deal with earlier in the year. He loaned me his Liberty Walk wide-body Porsche GT3 to do the Gold Rush Rally. So he gave me 5-star luxury hotels, parties at the coolest clubs, a really awesome car to drive. And I traded him a ride across the country nonstop with no hotels, no stops, in a $500 ex-taxi cab, ex-police car.
So we all started from the Red Ball, as we traditionally did. And we got to see some of the cars leave. And then it was time to leave in the limo. Really, we wanted John Harrison to drive out. Like, he started this all these years ago. We're going to let you drive out. Plus, he's a New Yorker, so he's going to know the way how to get out of town.
We start the race, and Ed gives me the honor of driving out of Manhattan because, you know, I live in Brooklyn. I've been in Manhattan most of my life in Brooklyn. I know the route cold.
I think Ed was like, should we be going this way? And like Harrison's like, no, I know how to get out of here. I know exactly where we're going.
Got out of the tunnel, no problems. And then we just took off to the great beyond. It was great because there was a part of me that always wanted to finish. Everybody sort of settled in, and we had a great time all the way across the country, except, you know, every once in a while Ed would run out of gas.
I want to show people how fast this thing, you know, how fast we're going. I reach over and take a picture of the speedometer, and Ed's all like, what? No. We'll see how fast this thing can go. And just starts coming up, and we're climbing the hills of Pennsylvania. A lot of people don't realize how mountainous that area is there. It's all, it's, you know, coming up 80, 90, you know, in the car. We found out later that we could get over 100 miles an hour, and we're climbing up, and it's like, and Ed's like, okay. And we just drift over, and we pull over, and we're out of gas. It's always strange, even after you do it many times, after you pass the 24-hour mark, things just get weird. And you start laughing at strange things, and the night descends. And
out of nowhere is the way I perceived it. One of Illinois' finest specimen of their larger deer jumped directly in front of the Lincoln, and it was very much game over for the deer and us as well. And the car was just toast. And I really, truly thank God we survived that thing, because if you hit a deer as large as that one, big antlers, by the way, and I can assure you it had antlers, because the lady that ended up pulling over after us, she pulled over because she was worried about the damage to her car just from hitting the head and the antlers piercing the underside of her car.
the next great stint of that was coming into Utah. You come down into Salt Lake City, and the west of Salt Lake City is really a speeder's paradise, and it's relatively flat. And Harrison got in, and it was just beautiful. Like, it was poetic in its simplicity.
So I start bumping it up, coming up, and we get just out of town, and I'm looking. I haven't seen these conditions in years. It was like we had the entire road to ourselves. And so I'm like, okay, we're going for it. This opportunity doesn't come along much anymore with all the traffic in America. And it was like the perfect time. It was the Salt Flats. It might as well have been the Salt Flats, because we could go as fast as we wanted to. And I just stuck it down there and see, how fast it would go and for how long. And we made it all the way across and into Nevada. And I'm like, this is great. And it was so wide open. There was no place for any police to hide. You could actually enjoy the scenery because there was nothing to concentrate on. The car's going straight, the road's going straight. So it was finally, it was a blast, and it was a very rare opportunity given what's going on these days. So that was like a big redemption for me.
It's rare you get these moments of flat out for that period of time, uninterrupted, just flowing. And it just went. And the car ran flawlessly, and it was just humming. And he was like in the zone. And it was beautiful. And it's hard to describe because all you're doing is driving. And it's always hard to describe to people the 2904 or the Cannonball to begin with. Like, why the hell you're going to do this? You spend most of your time doing this than rather doing anything else. But it was sublime, I think is the word. And everybody in the car knew what was going on. Like, everybody felt it. Ed felt it. Alex felt it. John was there, and he was finishing the Cannonball. Sorry. His journey was being completed, and so was mine. We all have moments in our lives that aren't complete, that we haven't finished. And that was him finishing that moment. And we saw ourselves in him, and there was a sense of pride. There was a sense of community at that moment. There was a sense of connection over the years between what John had done and what we were doing. I think what you hope for anybody is to be fulfilled in life. And to have a stupid cross-country race in a crappy limousine be that fulfillment is beautiful. And if you had been outside looking at us, it would look like the most boring thing you've ever seen. But it's the spirit that you carry in your heart that makes it special. And he made it special. So we finished. We drove out it. We swapped another drivers, and then I drove us in. And we finished at Coit Tower, which is the first time we've ever finished there, but it still added up to 2904, which was nice. And Coit Tower is this beautiful tower that overlooks the entire bay, and most everybody was getting there at night, and it was lit up and it was gorgeous. And it was a beautiful, quiet, retrospective moment when you'd come in and you park and the car turns off for the first time in days. And no surprise, Arnie won.
And as we made it up there, threw the car in park, took the picture of the car in front of the Coit Tower to officiate our finish time. And our time at 12:45 in the morning, when we arrived, our official time was 31 hours and 45 minutes. We had beaten Richard Rawlings' time by 14 minutes, and we now held the record for the fastest cross-country trip in a Cannonball-style race ever.
It was great. And then the other teams, beautifully, everybody finished. Everybody was safe. And that's what we first and utmost are, worried about.
The best part was at the finish, not only had I had fulfilled my desire, but it was 10 years, again, with no injuries, no accidents, one deer, no harm, no foul, except, took a car out. The rest of the time, everybody was safe. Everybody had a great time. And that was the whole point of the event, was to go out, do it for a reasonable price, stay within the rules, and just enjoy it. And if the car broke down in the middle of Nebraska and it was 30 degrees, you could set it on fire and wait for the police to come. It's like, at least you could stay warm and not freeze to death.
It really wrapped up beautifully. It felt like a good finish to the 2904. We had our great journey with great people, great results, everyone's safe, silly cars, some great adventures. And that was the 2904. I'm pretty sure.
If you're looking to set out on a Cannonball of your own, the first thing you've got to do is find the right car. And the best way to do that is with Autotempest.com. Autotempest allows you to search all major marketing websites and find exactly the right car you're looking for. But once you have that car, you're going to hit a lot of bugs and all sorts of other things. And if you want it to look shiny the whole way through, be sure to add some Avalon King ceramic coating. It works to harden your paint, protect the finish, and everything else just slides right off. So it's the perfect thing to prepare you and your vehicle for all the grueling use ahead. But part of that grueling use will probably involve some encounters with law enforcement, so be sure to go ahead and download the Ticket Clinic app. They're a nationwide law firm that can fight tickets anywhere in the US. So save their number and be sure to call them if you do happen to get stopped and have an unfavorable outcome with some law enforcement officers. Of course, we also like to support the Cannonball Memorial Run and the Brock Yates Memorial Fund, so you'll see links in the description below to donate there.